Hey, everybody. My name is Patrick O'Halloran. It's the top of the hour. I'm going to give us about 90 seconds, and then I will go ahead and get started. That's good. We'll go ahead and get started. If someone joins late, we'll be sending out a recording. You know how Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. I'll just let you know that about 30 seconds before this started, I spilled a glass of water all over the keyboard. So hopefully, we'll get through this before I get electrocuted or smoke starts coming out of my laptop. So thank you for joining. My name is Patrick O'Halloran. I'm a solutions architect with Reallocate. I'm going to give you a live demo of our product called Red. Reallocate has two products. One is called Red, which is our implementation tool, which allows you to rapidly create data warehouses. And when I say data warehouses, that's kind of a slightly older term. That could be data lakes, data lakehouses, data vaults, data marts, all those large kinds of data projects we can help you with. So first, I'll just talk in general terms about Reallocate and about data warehouse automation, and then I'll jump into the product and show you what I think is something that is pretty amazing. So Reallocate as a company has been around for 20 years. We started as a consulting company developing data warehouses and realized we were doing a lot of repetitive tasks. So we started developing tools for automating those tasks. And those tools were quite effective. Several customers asked if they could buy those tools. And at that point, Reallocate stopped being a consulting company and began as a software company. We have about 1,200 customers around the world. We're not tied to any particular industry. We have financial, pharmaceutical, education, government, NGOs, pretty much everything you can think of, professional sports teams, every industry you can think of. We have customers in that space. And this is all done through data warehouse automation. Now, data warehouse automation is a broad term, but as we get into this, you'll see all the shortcuts that are being taken. Basically, any pattern-based activity you're taking, any repetitive steps you're doing, we can automate. And automation does a couple of key things. Probably the immediate impact that people understand is increased developer output. So why is now the time for automation? Cost. That's the immediate thing people think of. If I can get things done faster, that's definitely a cost savings. If I can get information in front of the business leaders, people who need to make decisions based on the intelligence that the data analysts are coming up with, that's a realized cost. That's pretty important. The risk, Gartner several years ago had a report that said that data warehouses were the longest and the riskiest projects with the highest rate of failure of IT projects. By using automation, you can eliminate a lot of mistakes, a lot of rework. You can make debugging much simpler and lower the overall risk of delivering not just a product, but a usable product. Complexity, as new technologies are created, new design methodologies are created, new data sources are out there, web APIs, JSON files, Parquet files, whatever it is. Data warehouse automation allows you to incorporate new sources, new strategies, new schemas, and to get information out to the analysts much faster. Urgency, obviously the pandemic showed that companies have a need to turn on a dime, to change their priorities, to need new information that 6 months earlier they didn't need. And that leads into agility, the idea that with data warehouse automation, with Reallocate, I can rapidly prototype. I can sit down with a data analyst and create transforms, create new star schemas, create dimensions and facts, and all the things they're going to need. They can then use Yellowfin, Tableau, Power BI, Looker, whatever it is they're using to do their analysis, and immediately see those results. So what does all this lead to? Happier end users. One of the reasons data warehouse projects fail is what IT delivers is not what the business analysts ask for. Sometimes because the business analysts don't know how to ask for what they want or don't know exactly what they want. Reduced cost, limited risk, greater consistency and supportability, because everything I'm doing is automated. The code I'm generating is automated. The designs, everything else It makes support much, much better. As a programmer, I probably spent 25% of my time actually writing code and probably 50% of it debugging. You'll see that the great thing about data warehouse automation and Reallocate is that things not only work, they work the first time. Easier to evolve, expand, port to new platforms. I'll give you an example. We have a large insurance company in the Midwest, one of the Blue Cross Blue Shield customers, companies. They had been using Reallocate on Teradata for quite a few years, and they asked if they could port to Snowflake. And they asked us what would it take. Because they've been using Reallocate, because we had all this metadata available, we were able to completely recreate their data warehouse in Snowflake, all the structures, all the pipelines, all the processes, everything else in under 40 hours. And the documented and compliant. As we go through the demo, I'll show you the documentation that's created. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom if you want to click on that if you have any questions as I'm going through. I'm flying solo today, so I will probably wait until the end until I answer any questions. But feel free to ask questions. So let's just jump into the red product. And let me start by going here and showing you this architecture diagram to explain what red is. Again, we have two tools. We have 3D, a data-driven design tool that allows you to model source systems and create logical and conceptual models, import data from ER Studio or Irwin or Colibra to jumpstart that design. And then red is the implementation tool. Red is what actually creates the tables, the DDL, the DML, the SnowSQL, whatever it is that's going to actually create and operate the data warehouse. So over here on the far left, we have data sources. These are typically databases, ODBC connections, but they could be files, Parquet files, Excel spreadsheets, XML files, JSON files, whatever it is. Could be web APIs. Maybe you're calling through HTTP, you're calling sites and bringing back data that's XML format, whatever it is. All the way here on the far right, we've got the BI and analytics tools, and that is Yellowfin, Tableau, Power BI, any place you're consuming the data from the data warehouse. So those typical reports, dashboards, things like that. What Reallocate Red does is everything in between. We are kind of like an ELT tool in that we'll pull data from a data source. Again, could be files, could be databases. We'll load it into a one-to-one copy into a load table in whatever the target is. Reallocate supports about 17 different targets, Snowflake, SQL Server, Synapse, Google BigQuery, Databricks, pretty much anything you can think of we support as a target. Transforms into what may be a data foundation. So I've got a couple listed here, data stores, data vault, third normal forms. Whatever it is that you're storing the data as, business transforms to get to your end, your semantic layer, the star schemas and anything else the end users are using. Now, this is just a suggestion. I can go straight from a load table to a dimension. It's probably not best practices, but we don't force you down any particular methodology. It's very adaptable, very customizable. And as you're doing this, you're describing what you want to do, not how you want to do it. I rarely have to type code using Reallocate, and also I'll show you some of the advantages of that. All this is stored as metadata. So again, data about data. What do the tables look like? How does one table feed into another? Where did the data come from? What transforms are taking place? And you'll see that in the documentation and some of the data lineage screens as well. And then documentation. I always describe documentation as the phase of a project where someone runs around and grabs all the Post-it notes and types them into Word right before all the consultants leave. You'll see that because we're capturing metadata, we're able to create really, really helpful documentation. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to create a load table. I'm going to create a stage table on top of that to do transforms. And then I'm going to create a dimension. I'll create the documentation that goes with it. And I'll talk a little bit about the scheduler. So this is our IDE, the development environment. Got a couple things. I've got my Explorer here. This shows me everything that's in my data warehouse as far as metadata goes. My workspace is up here. Anytime I'm doing something, I'm typically using this space. Over here is my Explorer. If I want to look at the data warehouse, look at source systems, I can do that here. And down here is my results panel. Anything I'm doing, let me just clear this right now. Anything I'm doing shows up down here. And that's one of the nice things about Reallocate. We're not a black box. We're very open. Anything we generate, whether it's Python scripts or SnowSQL or PSQL, PLSQL, whatever it is, all that's exposed. So you see exactly what we're doing. All the templates we use to create code, create scripts, all those are editable. So if you have specific requirements, the Rework is very, very flexible. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go here and look at my connections. These are source systems, and one of my source systems is a Northwind database. This is a SQL Server database that's running locally on my laptop. I'll just accept all the defaults. And here are all the tables and views within the Northwind database. And again, the first thing I need to do, going back to my diagram, is I need to create a load table. I need to get this data into my source system. So I changed my context here to load tables. I've already got a few created, but I'm going to do customers. I'm going to create a dimension off of this. I can grab this, if I can grab that and drag it over here. And a couple things happen. I've got naming conventions, prefixes and suffixes. Those are customizable. I've got a default target for all my load tables that goes into a specific schema. If I don't like that, I can obviously change it. But I've got separate schemas created for load tables, stage tables, and my warehouse itself. And then what type of conversion I'm doing. In this case, I'm doing Snowflake from SQL Server. But all the typecasting, data type conversions, they're all in here, which is very, very handy. I don't have to learn those things. If I'm importing from SQL Server and from Oracle and from an API, I don't have to spend time researching and possibly getting wrong what all those typecasts should be. There's quite a few options here on how I'm going to create my load table. I'll just accept a couple things real fast. Here's my script template, which is from a Python load script. Again, that script is editable. The template is editable. If I want to possibly add maybe some logging or something else, I'll just click OK. Create and load. And what this is doing now is it's creating a Python script that's going to write some DDL, load that up to Snowflake. In this case, my target is Snowflake. And then it's going to go to the SQL Server database, extract everything from the customers table that's in my Northwind database, write that to a local file, compressed file, upload that to Snowflake, and then copy it from that storage into the new table. And if you notice, I didn't have to do any of that, which is good because I don't know Python. So the script that's actually running, that's doing everything, is in a language that is totally foreign to me. I could probably debug it, but I would never, ever try and write Snowflake. So here's the DDL, as I said. It's all open. We're creating a table. We're truncating it. We're selecting from the source system, putting it into a file, copying it into Snowflake storage, and then copying that into this table. So this table, which didn't exist a minute ago, is now here in Snowflake in my target, and it's a one-to-one copy of what's in the source system. So we are here now. We just created the load table. I'm going to create some transforms, and then, as I said, skip over all the middle and go straight to a load table. So I changed my, I need to browse my database, my data warehouse. There's my new load table right there. Set my context here to stage tables. Again, stage tables is where all the transforms are done. Drag this in here. Same thing, naming conventions to apply. The default target, default schema that I've set up in the, for stage tables goes into a schema called stage. I add this, and now I've got my stage table. I need to rebuild this. I need to tell it what the business key is. In this case, I'm going to tell it that it's customer. I'm going to click OK, OK, just accept all the defaults. There's a lot of things I can do here, but I'll just accept all the defaults. Again, stage table gets created, and the data gets copied from the load table into the stage table. Not very exciting yet because I haven't done any transforms. I'll do those in a minute, but what I'm going to do is create a dimension off of this first. So a similar process. I go here, set my stage to dimensions. I refresh my data warehouse browser, look in the stage, and here is my stage customers that we just created. Drag this over here. Naming conventions, dimensions are dim underscore. Again, that's all configurable. And since there's several types of dimensions in Kimball modeling, I get a choice. Do I want type 1, type 2, type 3, type 6? I'm going to go with a slowly changing dimension, which tracks history. And a lot of defaults, I can put in some documentation. This will show up later when we create the documentation. And let me create, and let me close this. Let me go back to here. Rain. Looks like I have a caps lock set, which is fine. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to rebuild this. So it remembers the customer ID as the business key. And the other thing I do is if I just click OK, it's going to say, hey, this is a type 2 slowly changing dimension. We need to know what attributes you want to track over time. So I'll just select everything that's geographic. Address, city, region, postal code, country. Click OK. Click OK. Accept all the defaults. And what it's doing now is it's, again, creating a Python script that's going to run SnowSQL in this case. That's going to take the stuff from the source system and load it into Dimension. So let me rebuild this script. I think I just did that, but I'll do it again. Okay. Let me execute it. And it didn't like something. Creating the table. Executing the update script. Apparently I haven't created the table yet. That looks better. Now that if I look at the data in this new dimension, excuse me, I can see I've got a surrogate key in case the fact table joins to this and the customer doesn't exist. I've got all the data from the stage table. I've got, since this is a type 2 slowly changing dimension, I've got effectivity start and end dates. I'll call this beginning of time and this end of time. Since this is the first time I've done this with this table, these are all version 1. They're all the current record. So I've done this. I can join this to a fact table. If I were sitting down with an analyst, they could query this immediately, again, using Tableau, Power BI, because this is a real table that exists with real data in the data warehouse. So let's say they've looked at this and they say, hey, this region being null is really messing up my reports. Can you put something in there rather than a null value? Sure. So again, I mentioned all the transforms are done in the stage table. I can go to region and say, I want to add a transformation. Now, what transformations can I do? Since this is executing as SQL in the target, again, whether it's PSQL or SnowSQL or Databricks SQL, whatever it is, anything the database can do, I can do as a transform within Red. So in this case, I'm going to look at my string functions and say, I'm trying to find if null. You know what? I've used SnowSQL so little, I'm not even sure what that function is. Okay, I'll just make it uppercase instead. I'll do something different. This is the joy of a live demo. I'll say we want country or customer name in uppercase. Let me look at the data, make sure it's mixed case right now. The company name is mixed case. Let me do city. Since city is one of the track changes, I'll, excuse me, I will add a transform to city. So show columns, go to city, add the transform, and I will just say under string functions, we'll make that uppercase. And here's a small thing what data automation does. Every time you type something, you have a chance of making a mistake. 99 times out of 100, I'm going to want this to be the name of the column from the source system. I can just click paste and paste that in. That's one fewer thing I had to actually type. Okay, so I've added a transform here. If I look over here, if I refresh this, there's my new transform. If I recreate the update procedure, and look at my data now. Sorry, I need to execute my update procedure. And look at my data just to verify that, sure enough, city is all uppercase now. So I didn't change anything in my dimension. I just changed what was in the source system. I didn't modify the table, the source table at all, the stage table at all. I simply added that. So I can just rerun this update script with the new data. And since it's a type 2 slowly changing dimension, what's going to happen is when I display the data and look at by customer ID, I've now got 2 records for every customer. Why do I have 2 records? Because one of my tracked columns changed. it went from lowercase to uppercase. And now you can look here and see that for the first record we had, the start date stayed the same, but the end date changed to a few milliseconds ago. And the same is true of the new record. New record got inserted. I can see the old record was deprecated from the current flag of yes to no. That's the new record right there. And I can see that the new record is version 2. So whether those changes I'm making are as simple as adding an uppercase, I'm adding a calculated column, whatever it is, I can do that right in front of the analyst and have them verify it through whatever tools they're used to using. So just in a few seconds, I have created the script. This is just the dimension part of it. I also created the load script and the stage script with the transforms in it. But this is quite a few lines of code of Python. And again, I don't know Python. I could probably read this and debug it, but you can see the embedded SQL, SnowSQL. That's here, that's being executed. Again, all the work that Red is doing, it's doing up in the target database. So error handling, logging, all that is all taken care of for you. Now that I've created that dimension, this is, again, just a very fast demo. I could potentially join it to a fact table. I already have a fact table created. But what I'll do instead is I will create the documentation. So if I go here and say create documentation, I need a folder where I'm going to create it. It creates, I'll just accept all the defaults. It creates an HTML file that contains 2 types of documentation, end user documentation and technical documentation. And that XML file can be shared anywhere. So this is the user documentation. This is the dimension we just created. And you can see we've got comments on everything. Where did that come from? That came from the source system. When we extracted from the SQL Server database, any extended attributes were carried along with us. And that flowed from the load table to the stage table to the dimension. And here's the comments I typed in. Again, I could put in examples here of how to query this, how to join it to the fact tables. But all that's available to the end users. There's a glossary. So if they have questions about what is customer ID, I can go down here and look and see that customer ID is on the DIM customers table. It's on the fact table, and it explains what that field is in this glossary. This is all, like I said, editable, configurable, if I need to expand on this. What's a little more interesting, especially for developers, is the technical documentation. If I look here and look at my dimensions and look at that same thing, I've got a lot more information available here. I've got transforms that are done on the dimension, extended properties. I've got all the columns here, including all the metadata, whether they're tagged for historical record, any transforms that are being done. I've got data lineage. So I can see that DIM customers came from the stage table, came from the load table, came from the customers table. Any extended properties, anything else there. I can, look at the code here. Look at my update procedure for the dimension. So I don't have to have access to Red. I don't have to have access to the target system. All the code, the scripts that are being run are easily accessible to me. If I look at, say, a fact table, because I created one earlier, more information about the star schema. What's this fact table joined to? How's it joined? This fact table came from a stage table, which combined 2 load tables, order and order details. The orders were denormalized here in the stage table and carried onto the fact table. So there's a lot of power here. A lot of times when you have data that's in a fact table, metrics that are in the fact table, and the analysts are presenting that information to someone, the question always comes up, how confident are you of this data? Because we've got metadata, because we've got data lineage, I can easily go back and see that where the data came from, all the transforms, all the way back to the source system. Similarly, if a source system changes, maybe a column is added, maybe null values are now allowed and they weren't allowed before, I can do a track forward diagram and go forward from the source system to see everything that's impacted in the data warehouse by that source system changing. So there's a lot of information here. As I said, I just went through quickly and just created a load table, a stage table with a transform and a dimension off of that. This is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of information here, a lot of things you can do with Reallocate. There's also an entire design tool if you want to take a model-driven approach. I can create a conceptual model a physical model, and then use that, import it into Red, and create all my DDL and DML, my scripts, Python scripts, whatever I need. So one of the nice things about automation is I didn't have to learn how to convert SQL Server types to Snowflake types. I didn't have to learn Python. Creating the dimension was real straightforward. I didn't have to make a decision about how I'm going to create my type 2 slowly changing dimension. It was done for me. And with that, I'm going to finish up the live demo. As I said, this is the tip of the iceberg. I will go back to my slide and just show you that if you're interested in Reallocate, interested in learning more, you can email us at moreinfo@reallocate.com. If you have any questions, maybe after this demo is done, you suddenly think of a great and wonderful question, you just want more information, feel free to email us. You can also go to reallocate.com and request a demo. So with that, there are no questions. Apparently I did everything perfectly and explained everything incredibly well. But if you do have questions, as I said, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to talk to you. It's an incredible tool. It is such an amazing productivity tool. The consistency of the product that's developed, the quality of the data warehouse that's developed is leaps and bounds above anything you can do manually, or pretty much anything you can do with any other tool. We are truly an end-to-end tool, going all the way from sources all the way to the end user. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.